Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, it's been another week, another draw-the-line moment in Nigeria, where new political chapters have opened and closed. A week in which Rivers State politicians have once again become tangled in incendiary arguments, allegations, counter-allegations, and verbally combustible clashes. A week in which Nigerians have risen up like a blazing brush fire against yet another tax in the midst of a crushing cost of living crisis. And a week in which the former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello now seems to have retracted his white lion clause and is ready to appear in court to face EFCC allegations of massive corruption. Well, their analysis of the week, with that analysis, I'm joined now in the studio by a former commissioner in Delta State, Kenny Okolugbo, who's currently a public affairs analyst, and by the policy strategist and group CEO of the global investment and trade company, Baba Yusuf. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for coming in.
Always my pleasure.
And let's start with that breaking news.
The breaking news.
that it just came from Rivers.
Yes.
I'd like to get both of you to comment on it, because apparently a judge has imposed a restraining order on the lawmakers there.
Charles Wali. But I actually thought two things. The governor had an opportunity of putting his acts together, because once Motosho gave that judgment on the 24th of January, he didn't take judicial notice of the lawmakers who had defected to the APC. But the judgment of the 24th of January was a substantive judgment. And that judgment restrained him from not recognizing the lawmakers. He was to represent the budget. He also did not recognize Edison here, who had gone on to the other courts of Danagogo. Danagogo had recognized it here and had also restrained Amewile, and these are all courts of coordinate jurisdiction. So now that a new factional speaker has emerged, what would have thought it would have been, first of all, vacate the order of Kayode Omotosho. I thought that would have been a neater way to put it, because now you have restrained the Amewile faction, so to say, by another competent court of coordinate jurisdiction. Sometimes they'll say, which of the orders should we obey?
Yeah.
You have restrained us from parading ourselves. Omotosho have recognized us. You have the same powers. And
so which one
we obey? So I think the judiciary is not helping the situation in Rivers State.
What do you make of that,
my opinion.
Thank you, Charles, once again. You know, when this issue started a couple of months ago, I mean, maybe 6-7 months ago, we had a discussion, and I said, when Mr. President convened that meeting, albeit with an intention to find a solution to the situation, and the constitutional provisions that would have, made things, was put at bay. And principal actors in deference to Mr. President, for example, Excellency Governor Fubara signed that document, and I said that day that this is what we call in strategy a potential Cobra effect. And I said Cobra effect means it occurs when an incentive designed to solve a problem ends up, rewarding people for making it worse.
Yes.
The Cobra effect has taken effect as it is, because you can see what is going on with the judiciary, the executive and the legislature. It turns out there is a political logjam in Rivers State, and the people are bearing the brunt, because the governor is now having to run and pick his nose, which
completely
distracted, and it's affecting governance. But then let's come to the issue, which is not novel, but it's different in the sense that the two principal actors in this case, who were albeit chumps, Fubara and Yemsom Wike.
They've fallen out, and they're basically falling out
publicly. And it has become, and I said in that interview that it will be very difficult, because I was on the pessimistic side, rightly so, that it was not going to solve the problem, because the two personalities have two personality types that is different from what probably President Tinubu thought. He thought he's dealing with people, or in this case, Yamsom Kwike has a similar personality with him, that from a strategic point of view, he's a sensing person. He can play the long game. You remember he had issues, in the past with even his his proteges. And he was able to wait out and deal with issues at the right time. This time around, you have very sensitive personalities that are impulsive. And that is going to culminate into a new, case study in the political history of Nigeria, because I dare say everybody standing on the other side will not have an authoritative position with regards to how these things play out. But what is important it still remains the fact that an executive governor sitting in his seat must be the person that will run the state.
But let me ask you this, because Baba Yusuf and I are in a position. We're not politicians, are we?
No.
But you are a politician.
Very well.
And I have to wonder what it is. Perhaps you could give us some insight into how people, because all of you who want to make progress, to some extent, many of you have a godfather who kind of helps to push you along. What kind of relationship leads to this kind of thing that we are seeing?
I think what actually happened in the case of Rivers was a total breakdown of the relationship between Wike and Fubara. And in politics, we're taught in school, military-industrial complex. Those that benefit from war, pestilence, and strife. And so those people that are benefiting from this crisis are fanning the embers of discord. And they go to Wike, they give him his own side of the story. They go to Fubara, they give him his own side of the story. But there was a time they could have easily mended fences, just even before the president waded in. And I think the more the crisis festered, the more people were feeding from this crisis, the more the crisis degenerated. If not, whether you like it or not, Fubara has confirmed that Wike made him his accountant general, and he has also confirmed that Wike practically picked him and made him the governor of Rivers State. It's somebody said maybe it's a thing with Rivers State that Odili had his challenges with Judge Rufus Adad. He wasn't seen to be grateful. He was Rufus Adajo's deputy. Amechi was not grateful to Odili. Wike was not grateful to Amechi. And so Fubara, I don't know what it says about Rivers State.
But it's very difficult.
But it's quite difficult.
This whole idea of godfather. And you can't control someone who's an executive governor.
But what you can even also expect is the fact that when you have made someone the governor, you have helped somebody to that position. I think it also behaves on you to also give him some time to be able to express himself. If you look at Akwa Ibom, look at how Umaino is navigating between the Senate president, who practically picked Emmanuel Udom from Zenith Bank, made him his SSG, made him the governor, and Emmanuel Udom turned 360, just like what is happening between Wike and Fubara. But now the same Umaino who has emerged from Emmanuel Udom has been able to navigate between the Senate President Akpabio and Emmanuel Udom, even though he returned 99.9% of Emmanuel Udom officials.
Well, let me get you in to kind of wade into that thinking.
Yes, I think it is the reality, but it is changing. If you see the trend of events, and I think the so-called godfathers will now, going forward, after what plays out with Rivers and seemingly what is happening in Kaduna subliminally,
well, that's true.
Towards 2027, the godfatherism model will have to adjust, because the so-called godfathers will now realize that your state power has limitations not less than that first time of the person that you put into play. Because people also quickly now realize that they have the inherent powers. The power blocks, like you are saying, will emerge, and then someone has to assert himself. So the godfathers will now realize and recognize that the focus should be in building and empowering people for the long haul, delivering values, rather than putting a stranglehold on a state, for beyond 8 years, for whatever reason, is not going to work going forward, because you can see them pushing back. The issue with Ganduje in Kanu is the same godfatherism issue, and you can go on and on. The issue in Edo State and all that. So it is part of our political process, Charles. We are evolving, and I tell you what, at the end of the day, the ultimate gainers will be Nigerians, because these politicians will be falling out for whatever reason, it is either they get themselves together or the dark horse scenario will play out. We are new players that have no godfather.
But in the meantime, before you get to that dark horse, which could be just a very dark shadow, in which case it's not tangible and you can't hold it. I mean, governance is being affected.
Yes. That's the point.
Yeah.
Because every single day, the people of Rivers State
are in dire straits.
Are in dire straits. And that is the sad thing. But
at
at the end of the day, the people will win. This will not prevail.
Well, we hope so. Let's move on to the other big story that kind of emerged today as well. The latest line on the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, a court today rejecting his request to stop his trial in that 80 billion naira fraud case. He wanted to stop it. The judge dismissed that. What is your assessment of what happened there?
The Supreme Court has actually said it. You can't sit in the comfort of your home. You are supposed to have been arraigned, and you're dictating to the same court to take your motions. No court would do that. First and foremost, we actually talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago in this studio.
Yeah, we did.
We said Yahaya Bello, the law was eventually going to catch up with him, that no matter how he tried to play the game. If you look at Hadi Sirika is closer to Buhari. That was a man Buhari...
That's the former minister of
former minister. That was a man Buhari favored to become the governor of Katsina, but lost in the primaries of the APC. He can't say he's closer to Buhari than Hadi Sirika. The EFCC did not only arrest Hadi Sirika, he was arraigned with his daughter.
Yeah,
He was
there.
He was granted
court.
bail.
Yeah.
Why has Bello... the last time I checked, the EFCC has not killed anybody. So why has Bello so...
Well, not to our knowledge.
But at least the last I checked, there's not been any accusation that the EFCC did kill anybody.
Maybe not directly, but they've given a few heart attacks to a few people.
Okay, maybe indirectly, if you say so. But I doubt it. But I think the fear of EFCC now becomes the beginning of wisdom. But so what Yahaya Bello would have done to prevent all these people he had put around, all this drama around him, he's been declared wanted, he's going to be on record, he's been declared wanted. The court has said, I'm not vacating your arrest, the warrant of arrest, until you submit yourself to the court. Now, what I thought he would have done, he would have submitted it to himself to the court today. People would have respected him more.
Absolutely.
Because if you say the EFCC is biased, so the court is also biased. Because if you have submitted yourself to the court would either put you in either the Kuje Correctional Center until you meet your bail conditions. But with what Yahaya Bello has done, I doubt if the court will not make his bail conditions very stringent.
That's a good point. Let me come to you there, because that's an interesting thing, because the judge, as we were discussing earlier, was pretty hard, wasn't he, accusing Mr. Bello and his lawyer of trying to undermine the judicial process. And I mean, the one thing you never do, and you're always told that in law school, you're told that emphatically, particularly abroad and other places, I mean, I don't know what they do, what happens here, is that you don't turn the judge off.
Absolutely.
It's not a good idea.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying, Charles. And the truth is, His Excellency Yahaya Bello made things worse for himself. I mean, all he needed to do was show up in court, worst case, spend a couple of days in detention, because definitely you will be granted bail.
The bit he did.
Well, then that's not a white lie.
Yeah.
All right. We just spoke about people that were fighting for a betterment of Nigeria. They still serve time. I'm the great Sage Owl. So at the end of the day, now the credibility of the suspect has been called to question. The suspect, in this case, Yahaya Bello, is in contempt of court. So I wonder what kind of leniency he will be seeking to come that day and with a heavy couple of lips for his senior lawyer to be seeking for bail. Is it on self-recognition or what? When someone went to preempt the process and say, don't arrest me on the
Very
suspect.
good point.
So at the end of the day, this will be a lesson to all. And for people like us that will become litigants, either as a plaintiff or a defendant, don't just listen to the lawyers. Listen to the voice of reason.
Absolutely.
And then a politically exposed person should know a lot of people, lawyers, politicians, political
just
jobbers,
trying to make money,
feast out of this. And I can
and
tell
that's exactly what they did with Bello.
Bello would have doled out a lot of money to all those people that are pushing a narrative.
Especially the media war.
And of course, in the end, he loses.
He loses because
at the end of the day, these people, I call them, metaphoric undertakers that escort people to just bury him, because now they cannot help him. At the end of the day,
but I think
we're running out of time. So,
he's very correct because you try to bring the EFCC chairman for contempt of court. You are saying you're writing the UK, the US not to grant him visa. Why are you trying to blackmail the EFCC chairman? He's been able to show that Obiano, even Ahmed, the former governor of Kwara, we are all granted bail. And Obiano has even been given leave to travel abroad. Yeah. So if you look at the antecedents, we're looking at his antecedents. We're not even looking at the EFCC or before that you talk of media trial. I think Yahaya Bello only just wanted to dance around his own political suicide. That's exactly what I see.
We'll keep a very close eye on that. We've got literally a couple of minutes, so 1 minute each. Your thoughts on the levy, the cybersecurity levy. It hasn't taken effect yet. There are moves to try and stop it from taking effect, but what are your thoughts on it briefly?
Thank you very much, Charles. You see, it appears to me that the frontliners of this administration are looking at governance from a different perspective. They are trying to make governance, running it like a business where your key performance indicators, KPIs, are the bottom line. Revenue, profit, equity, and all that, rather than social justice, debt to GDP ratio, and all that. Why am I saying that? It is becoming, I'm not part of the administration, but I'm becoming embarrassed by the kind of policies we see day in, day out. I'm beginning to call it a levy administration. Why should levy or tax drive your governance when we know that the three critical tenets of leadership are value creation, value innovation, and value protection? And the likes of the Minister of Finance, CBN Governor are supposed to provide what is called decision support for President. So are we driving economics, social economy? Are we driving it? Or are we just looking at how to extract? And I'll just land with this quote from Margaret Thatcher, where she said, and I quote, "No nation grew more prosperous by taxing its citizens beyond their capacity to pay."
Absolutely.
We have a duty to make sure that every penny we raise in taxation is spent wisely and well. Now, if you say you are pushing these levies on people that are over 65% multidimensionally poor, you are trying to extract what is not there. So I think they need to go back with some level of circumspection to look at things from a policy coherence perspective and to be more strategic.
Well, hopefully they'll do that very quickly.
No, but I think the CBN should have first of all put this thing on the space. Remember 2015 was when we first heard about the cyber crime act. That was the Hungary accord more to it. Budapest, more like it, sorry. Yeah. Then, if you look at the cybersecurity, it's 0.5%. Over 2 trillion was done in terms of transfers in 2023. So if you look at 0.5% of 2 trillion, that's a whole lot of money. And people are frowning because it's domiciled in the office of the National Security Advisor. They feel it should, even if you're to take that tax, they believe it should be domiciled in the Ministry of Finance. So I think some of these things was what the CBN,
there are a lot of issues
should have tied it up before bringing it out to the Nigerian space. They just brought it out and said, "Oh, this is just going to become."
Well, hopefully they're listening to you and they'll go back and rethink.
And tidy it up. And so it becomes more like a debate. So Nigerians will not just be taking unawares, just like you were taking unawares, and you know that for every transaction you now do. Because don't forget that you have stamp duty, you have VAT, and you have transfer charges.
Absolutely.
For every transfer you're already making.
In addition to the charges that the bank itself
is going to take from you.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, on that note, you guys are always brilliant, consistently so.
Thank you.
And it's a great conversation. Kenny Okolugbo, currently a public affairs analyst, former commissioner in Delta State.
Always my pleasure.
Baba Yusuf, policy strategist, group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having us.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.